ध्यायेत् शारदचन्द्रसुन्दरमुखम् ताम्रार्विन्देक्षणम् भक्ताभीष्टवराभयप्रदकरम् कौपीनमात्रोज्ज्वलम् स्वात्मानं दरसानुभूतिविवशम् सर्वानवद्याङ्गकम् श्रीमन्तं श्रीरमणीश्वरं गुरुवरं योगासनाध्यासितं ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षातात्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वतामच्युतव पवनचलनरोधात् आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्. Ramana, we will commence the Tuesday Self-Enquiry and Atma Vichara session from Ramanacentre for Learning, Bangalore, by reading and meditating on Bhagavan's Upadesham. We have been reading the reminiscences of Mahakrishna Swami, a devotee of Bhagavan, of his stay in Ramanashramam, titled in the book Years in the Presence of Ramana, My Master, which was originally edited and published, printed by A.R. Natarajan Ji and published by Ramanacentre, Bangalore. We have been reading of his reminiscences in the years or the techniques and teaching subtopic of reminiscences. After this week's reminiscences and meditating on it, we will have a 20 minutes practice session of self-enquiry. Following that, our President Sarada would be contemplating on self-enquiry as it has been captured or compiled by Ganapati Muni in Ramana Gita, which is a compilation of, again, questions put to Bhagavan and Bhagavan's answers by various devotees and devotees of Ganapati Muni and Ganapati Muni himself, which has been compiled by him in Sanskrit verses called Ramana Gita. And then finally, we will conclude the satsang with prayers to Bhagavan. Sri Mahakrishna Swami talks is continuing to say that Bhagavan Sri Ramana never encouraged people to tell him their faults. He gently guided them not to relive the past, but to investigate what they are now in the present. Past and future are mental creations. Only the eternal present exists. The problem is not the actions, but the attachment to them. Often, if we are attending to the mind, attending to the thoughts, Either we will be reliving something in the past, recollecting it, and passing opinions, judgments. In a way, we will be reliving of something that has happened, something that we have experienced. Or we will be little concerned about something of the future. In either which way, the present, which is the true reality, will be slipping through our attention. So Bhagavan Mahakrishna Swami here says, but it is the present moment which is in reality the truth that is being experienced. The past is gone, buried, and the future is yet to come, and we don't know, we can't be certain about it. But the present, instead of living it to the fullest extent, this mind once it grabs our attention, it will be either thinking, reliving of the past, or it will be concerned or planning something for the future. And Bhagavan here, Mahakrishna Swami says, use the present, again, use the present not to experience the present thought or not to experience the present happening, but to investigate to whom is this. Because only when we investigate to whom is this, only truly then the superimposition of the time, the superimposition of the thoughts, or superimposition of any object on that reality will not happen. Otherwise, even in the now, we will be superimposing a thought, superimposing some object of our attention, superimposing something that is being experienced. Only in the now, when we investigate to whom is this, who am I, that is the only time we are living in the now. That is, according to Bhagavan, living in the now. Otherwise, in some subtle way, living in the now with full attention to some object is actually living in something on which, on the living on the object which is superimposed on the self. So only by enquiry, only by the investigation to whom is this, who am I, is the real living in the now. And he continues to say that even when the actions are going on, even when the living in the now is there, whatever may be the mental actions, the physical actions that are going on, one need not resist it. One need not suppress it. One only needs to see to whom is this happening. And by that, one needs to be watchful if one is having attachment to what is happening. If there is no attachment, whatever may be happening, no problem. The clouds will be floating in the sky, the trees will be blown up by the wind, there may be rain. All of it is part of the nature. As those things hardly disturb us, so too Bhagavan is saying that the mind, the body, and all of this is part of that very same nature. So they may continue to act the way they act. There need not be any differentiation between the acting of a tree or a passing of a cloud to that of a passing of a thought or moving of our hands and legs. So if only you can understand the truth, who we really are, and have constant attention to it, and have absolutely no attachment towards all these actions that are happening, that is all that matters. We need not deny the actions per se. That is what Bhagavan is saying. Often, when we say we want to be in solitude, often when we think of being aloof, we think of really suppressing the actions and staying in like a stone, like try to become like a stone. But that is not real silence, or that is not the real purpose of the spiritual journey. Let all the actions happen, and there need not be any attachment to them. And if we can closely observe the nature of the self, which is the pure being consciousness, here and now, that is how it is. It will be shedding its light on the actions of the mind, actions of the ego, and everything. And in its light, all of this animate and function. But yet, all of this animation least affects the self. And that's how Bhagavan is asking us. That's why a Gnani is said to be nothing but the self itself. It means he will be in the midst of all the natural actions that are happening around him. We will not seek any new action, but he will be okay with any action that is happening around him. Only thing is that he will have no attachment, because as the self, he recognizes he has absolutely no attachment. None of the actions has really affected the self, and therefore, since he is identified with that truth and not identified with the limited identity of name and form, he will be least disturbed. So that's why Bhagavan would say that let the actions go on, just ensure that you are identified with the self, and in that, naturally, there is no attachments to the action. And therefore, we need not even conceptualize an idea that I will have no attachments to action. We have to just identify who we are and identify ourselves with the self. And in that, we see that there is a natural no attachment to actions. And at the same time, naturally, there is the gracious presence of the self, and the gracious light in the light of the self, all the actions continue to happen. Continuing, Mahakrishna Swami says, Sri Ramana was very rigorous about the fulfillment of the teachings, and he personally took care so that the disciplines of the ashram would be followed by all, without exception. He gave the example of how we should behave in every detail or in any situation. However, even if he disapproved of a certain attitude, he rarely prohibited something. The understanding and knowledge of that which was appropriate and that which was not had to come from each one. However, the teachings was clear. Accept all that the master accepts and refuse all that the master refuses. So, if there are certain rules in our family, in our workplace, in wherever we are put to, Bhagavan would say that we should follow it to the T. Because that is when many can coherently work for a common cause. So we should not bring indiscipline in an area where the rules have been already set up. And he would ensure that he would follow it. And when things were going on, he would, if certain attitude was presented by somebody and which was not appropriate, he would be there to disapprove that attitude. But he would not say that you need to completely prohibit. Means that means that if somebody showed an attitude, you could show what was wrong with them, but doesn't mean you take such a terminal decision that will not be allowed further or anything as such. Rather, he would accept the person to understand, get the real knowledge behind it, why something was disapproved, and inculcate that going forward. So it is like a learning. It is like writing an exam. We may not come out in the flying colors first time, and the teacher may, after evaluation, show us what was wrong in our presentation, why he had to disapprove it. But that doesn't really mean that I cannot take the examination again. I can take the examination until teacher is convinced that I have understood and acquired the knowledge that is required, which I can implement in the due course of things of my life. So that is the approach, says Mahakrishna Swami, that Bhagavan would take. However, his teaching was very clear. He says, accept all that the master accepts and refuse all that the master refuses. So we can look at master, the self, the God as nothing but one and the same, as Bhagavan keeps repeating. The self accepts everything and refuses only that it is like a screen. So the attachment which comes in the form of the ego, which is an imaginary entity, which takes this light of consciousness and limits to the object of attention. That attachment is the only thing which is very superficial or unreal. So that is the only thing that we need to refuse, because that is only imaginative. In the self, there was really no attachment. It was like the sun shining, in whose light everything happens. So, but the ego, a spurious entity, an imaginary entity, limits that consciousness to a gross object and brings a sense of individuality, brings a sense of limitation, where really there is no limitation at all. So Bhagavan is saying that the self really doesn't accept. If it had accepted that attachment, it should have been disturbed by it. The self should have got disturbed by it, and it should have had that repent or why did I do this kind of a thing, even in sleep and other duration. But we know that like the sun shining and everything happening, the self is giving light to everything, but not refusing anything. Only thing it refuses is the wrong idea of attachment, which is an imaginary, spurious thing that happens by the ego. So Bhagavan is saying, Mahakrishna Swami is saying here, that attachment, that limitation which is caused by an imaginary entity is the ignorance. If we can be watchful of it, and if we can transcend it, whenever we are made to become watchful of it, whenever we are made to transcend it, then and there we can see it is nothing but the act of grace. It is the grace descending from the self to rise us back from being limited to being the free, unlimited truth here and now. And that's exactly what the self-enquiry makes us achieve practically. No matter how many thoughts come, no matter what is our source object of attention, Moment we inquire to whom is this, who am I, we can see very clearly that we were carried away by the ignorance, were carried away by the false idea that there is something apart from oneself to whom we have to attach to gain something or to avert from some our own happiness. So when we recognize this error that we are carried away by a limited identity, then and there, by inquiring to whom is this, who am I, we can bring the attention back to the ever-present self, which alone is everything, and yet it is transcendental of everything here and now. With repeated practice, Bhagavan assures that the mind will become bereft of all the ignorant ideas, and that silent mind would be found to be nothing but the self here and now. With Bhagavan's immense grace, with Valchalam, we have come to this most direct path. The next 20 minutes, let us practice Atma Vichara. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana. Over to Sarada Akka. Namo Ramana Akka. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, in this part of the satsang, we are meditating on the import of the verses of Ramana Gita in the practice of self-enquiry. We, by the grace of Bhagavan, have covered 17 meditation on 17 chapters, and we are now stepping into the 18th chapter. The 18th chapter is Siddha Mahimanu Kirtanam. It is the extolling of the glory of the Siddhas. Here, in this case, the Siddha is the Siddha Purusha, one who is ever established in the self. Bhagavan, in his Ulladinarpada, he says in Saddarshanam, Siddhasya Vittihi Sata Eva Siddhihi Swapnopamana Khalu Siddha Yonyaha Swapna Prabhuddhasya Katam Nu Satyaha Satistitah Kim Punareti Mayam. So he says that the true Siddhi, பிற சித்தியெல்லாம் சொப்பனமான் சித்திகளே, நித்திரை விட்டு ஓர்ந்தால் அவை மெய்யோ. So the establishment or being established in the Atma, in the self, is the true Siddhi, says Bhagavan. So here Muni is extolling the glory of such Siddhas by extolling the glory of Bhagavan Ramana. So he begins in the very first verse, he says, Varaparashara Gotra Samudbhavam Vasumati Sura Sangha Yashaskaram. Varaparashara Gotra Samudbhavam Vasumati Sura Sangha Yashaskaram. He is one who is born in the lineage of Parashara Muni. Varaparashara, he calls him the great Parashara. In the lineage of the sage Parashara, Bhagavan has been born. He is Parashara Gotra, belongs to the Parashara Gotra. The Muni Parashara is one who is said to have intuited the worship of Agni, and our Bhagavan is the very Swarupa of Agni Arunachala. So he is born in that lineage. It is for us to understand in a later verse in this 18th chapter, Muni will say that Bhagavan knows the secret of the mantra Vachat Bhuve Namaha. And that means that mantra is the mantra of Agni, of Subramanya as Agni. So Bhagavan is seen as the incarnation of Subramanya by Muni. And Muni had a vision when he was in with Bhagavan at the Pachayaman temple. He had a vision of a great ball of fire, like a fiery light, coming and touching Bhagavan's forehead 6 times. So he understood that to mean that Bhagavan is the incarnation of Subramanya or Kartikeya, the 6 sparks, the 6 lights which emanated from Shiva's third eye. So this is the Subramanya Tattva, the Agni which emanates from Shiva's third eye, gets united as the child Kartikeya after he is actually born as 6 children and then gets united as one. But the principle is the Agni, which comes from Shiva's third forehead. So, for us, in this context, we can look upon the Agni Tattva as the light of knowledge. So, Bhagavan is an embodiment of the light of knowledge, and because of his being born on earth, what has happened? Vasumati, or the earth, has become famous even among the gods. Vasumati, Surasangha Yashaskaram. Surasangha Yashaskaram. Vasumati, or the earth, has become famous among the gods, among the assembly of gods. So even the gods wish to come down on earth and be with Bhagavan. Even the great ones wish to come down on earth and be with Bhagavan. So this, he is extolling, the Muni is extolling the glory of Bhagavan and the glory of the Siddha, because of which the entire earth gets purified. So, while meditating on this, we understand the significance of self-enquiry and self-abidance, because we may do anything that is good for this world, for others, for the world, for the entire world, for the entire universe. But if we abide in the self, we are bringing the greatest good to the earth. Such great good that even the gods extol the earth. It is as if the heaven has come down to earth. Muruganar Swami in his composition says, Ihame Parama. Ihame Parama. This, when one is abiding naturally in the source, Ahame Ahamaha, in that way, when one is remaining as a self, then Iham becomes Param. The earth becomes a place of grandeur, of beauty, in blessed in every way. Vasumati Surasangha Yashaskaram. Then Vimala Sundara Pandita Nandanam, he says. Bhagavan is the son of the pure and learned Sundara. These two adjectives the Muni is using for Sundaramayyar over here. Vimala and Pandita. This is to indicate to us that the Jnana Putra, the birth of Jnana to Sundaramayyar, happens because of the purity, because Sundaramayyar is the Dharmatma. He is rooted in Dharma. He is pure. And it is only when our mind becomes pure through self-enquiry and surrender that knowledge will dawn. And learning is also important. We need to know what is the self-enquiry. We have to have clarity about the practice of self-enquiry. Do manana to get clarity about the practice of self-enquiry and keep our mind pure with the practice of self-enquiry itself, so that the birth of jnana happens. Vimala Sundara Pandita Nandanam Kamala Patra Vishala Vilochanam. Muni says Bhagavan's eyes are wide like the lotus petal. Kamala Patra Vishala Vilochan. They are wide and beautiful eyes of Bhagavan. And Muni always describes the glory of Bhagavan's eyes. For all of us also, Bhagavan's eyes are a great support in our sadhana. When we look at Bhagavan, primarily we look at his eyes. His face is very beautiful, we say. But what is the most beautiful aspect of Bhagavan's face? It is his eyes. His eyes are so very beautiful. So that if we even want to just meditate by looking at Bhagavan's eyes, Alan Jacobs once said, one can make even that a meditation. Just keep on meditating upon Bhagavan's eyes, those beautiful eyes of Bhagavan. In fact, Muni would tell anyone meditating in Bhagavan's presence, don't close your eyes and meditate. Look at Bhagavan. Look at his eyes. He told Humphreys, look at Bhagavan's eyes. And Humphreys felt God radiating terrifically from Bhagavan's entire body. But when he was looking at Bhagavan's eyes, that experience came to him. And many are there who have described the glory of Bhagavan's eyes. Many devotees. It could be the foreign devotees like Pascaline Mallet and so many other devotees. They say they feel that as if Bhagavan's eyes are piercing into them and looking into the depth of them and clearing away everything that is unnecessary inside them. Some say, describe it like that. Some others say that he, like Paul Brunton, he says, I could see that he could see everything in me. And he was seeing, it was, I think it's Paul Brunton, maybe somebody else also, that there was no sense of judgment about whatever he was saying. That glance was so accepting. It just accepted me entirely. Though it could see everything about me, there was no judgment in that glance. And my grandmother, who has seen Bhagavan a few times, my mother's mother, she once shared with me, she said, I have had the good fortune of seeing several saints and sages and being in their presence. But the eyes of Bhagavan Ramana have some magic. I don't know what is the mystery, what is the magic in those eyes. So Muni says, Kamala Patra Vishala Vilochanam. Then he goes on to say, Aruna Shaila Gatashrama Vasinam. Bhagavan has his ashrama on and the foothills of Arunachala, as we are all aware. See, Bhagavan's the ashrama, gatashrama, ashrama, the word ashrama, Sri Ramanacentre Tirtha Swami, he gave the Jayanti talk based on the word ashrama. What is ashrama? He says ashrama is nothing but the self. Where there is no shrama, that is the ashrama. And where is Bhagavan's ashrama? It is on the slopes of Arunachala, which is the very self. So the abode of Bhagavan is the very self. And Bhagavan says, if you want to search for Arunachala Ramana, where do you have to search for him? He says, Parival Ulamuruha. With great love, your heart melting with love, you search in the heart cave, which is Arunachala. Ulam Uruha Nala Parival Ulam Uruha Nala Paranarandid Guhayam. Arandid, search for him, his place. his presence within the heart, with your heart melting with love, then what happens? Arivam vidi tirava nijam arivaya adu veliyam. The eye of knowledge will open. This is Arunachala Ramana, he says. Hariyadi idara jeevara rahavarija guhayil arivairami paramatman Arunachala Ramanan. So here the Muni says, Aruna Shaila Gatashramavasinam Paramahamsam. He is the one of highest Viveka. See, the Hamsa is a bird which is said to have the discriminating ability of separating milk from water and drinking only the milk and leaving behind the water. That's why the great sages are called Hamsas or Paramahamsam, because Bhagavan did not have even the least trace of the thought of the body. We have seen the unfoldment of his beautiful story, wherein as a boy of 16, he was in the underground cellar of Patala Lingam and his thighs were being eaten up by vermin, but still he was not concerned about the body. What food he would have, how he has lived on these hot slopes of Arunachala in the heat of the summer, how he could have resided in the Virupaksha Guha or lay on the rocks of Arunachala. What are the numerous other instances? No, innumerable are the instances of Bhagavan showing to us that he is a Paramahamsa, totally unconcerned about the body. It is said that Muruganar Swami, when Bhagavan was suffering from sarcoma, pleaded with him, Bhagavan, please use your power, your capacity, the power about the Jnani's power, we will hear at the end of the 18th chapter. But Muruganar referred to that and said, please use it and cure yourself. Live to be 100 years at least, O Bhagavan. And Bhagavan, it seems, got angry and said, what? You want me to use a mind and perform a siddhi to elongate the life of this body? புத்தியை வச்சு சித்தி பண்ணி இந்த உடம்ப இன்னும் இத்தனை நாள் வாழ வைக்கணுமா? So this is what he asked. Siddhis, for what purpose? Is there any purpose in applying the mind? Even the mind does not exist, says Bhagavan. That is the Paramahamsa, whom he is. Paramahamsam Ananjanam Achyutam. We will continue to meditate on these verses of the 18th chapter and draw inspiration from Bhagavan's glory and draw inspiration in our practice and draw courage and succor, knowing that we are in the hands of such limitless, boundless power, as Vishwanatha Swami describes it. Apara Satchit Yasyor Nimatram Bhuvanam Samastam. The more we meditate on his glory, the more it becomes clear to us that we do not have to worry about anything at all. He takes care of our lives from moment to moment in the best manner possible. All that we have to do is to enjoy the bliss of the self. Om Namo Bhagavate Shrivaya.
Namo. Thank you, Akka. Apara Satchit Sukavaridashe यस्योर्मिमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं कबीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि नमो नमः।
Namo Ramana. Thank you, Dileep.